If you have a vision and understand how to use these tools, from creating a brand, buying a domain, coming up with your logo and theme, launching a website using a no-code platform, and signing up your first subscribers, you can get it done in under 2 hours, to be honest.
Hi, this is Emma. Thank you for joining us today. In this video, we will be interviewing Esther and discussing the creation of the brand, website, and newsletter. Hi Esther, can you introduce yourself and tell us why people should watch this video?
Hi, I'm a 10th grade student currently living in Toronto, Canada, and I've built numerous websites for personal projects. In terms of why people should watch this video, by the end, viewers will know exactly what steps to follow to create their online brand, secure a domain, and set up a website and newsletter with no coding required.
Let's go into it. First, let's imagine I'm a high school student who wants to launch a business, a nonprofit, or a community initiative. I need a brand, a website, and a newsletter. What's the approach?
So first is creating a brand, securing a website, and a visual identity. And this doesn't happen in sequence because if the domain is taken, then you can't use the brand. So make sure to look for everything at the same time. Then start working on the landing page, newsletter hosting, socials, and the app if it is applicable.
Now, let's start with the brand. How do you find a brand?
So think about what your project is about. So what is the personality of your business? Is it serious, fun, modern, or is it about human connections? For example, Spark Buddies is about human connections. So we took the word idea and we found synonyms for it. So that's when we came up with Spark. And then community, so buddies, because you're working with different entrepreneurs to help launch your business. And if your project is about fashion, for example, then you'll use a completely different approach. You'll either use your own name or a word with no meaning. So you can't come up with a name before checking if the domain is available. Let's look at GoDaddy. So what we want to go for are .coms, .nets, .orgs, and the extension of your country, so .ca or .fr. So if we're using a project about recycling, then let's look at green packaging first. As we can see, green packaging is taken, so we definitely cannot use that. And then if we keep going, there's just very confusing extensions that are really unusual. For example, .beer, or it offers alternatives like the greenpackaging.com, but that's not what we want. And then we can look at recycleme.com. So this is also unavailable. And then as you can see, there is .ai, which is also a really good extension, but it is pretty expensive, especially as a beginning entrepreneur. So this is also a good one to avoid. And then if we look at repackage.ca, we can see that it is available. It's using the extension of Canada, and it's not confusing, and it's very cheap. So this is something that we want to go for. Now, you can also use ChatGPT to get more ideas, but for branding, ChatGPT rarely comes up with good ideas. So it is a way to reactivate your creativity, but it rarely comes up with good brand names. And to buy, so let's go with repackage.ca. You click Make It Yours, Continue, Continue to Cart. And then here you have to sign in, and then all you have to do is pay. So it's really simple.
Okay, now that I have my domain, I need to come up with a logo, colors, and fonts. How do you do that?
So there are two approaches. First, you can do it on your own on Canva. So this is a website where people can create all kinds of visual designs, generate images, and try colors and fonts. So if we have a look at Canva, we can see the different pricings. So you can start off for free, and then after Canva Pro, Canva Teams, and then finally Canva Enterprise. So the best is to use Canva Pro if you're working on your own, because you have a lot more functionalities and a lot more access. Otherwise, you can use Fiverr.com. So this is where you hire freelancers to do work for you, and it starts cheap. So if we can see here, search up Create My Logo. It starts pretty cheap at $8, but it can rise until $259 based off the person's experience and rating. And if we look at Spark Buddies, we chose a specific palette that we followed throughout the whole entire website to make it look clean and give our brand an identity. And we also chose the font Inter, which we stuck with throughout the whole website.
Great. So far, we have learned how to develop a name, a brand, and a visual identity. What's next? What platform do you recommend for a website?
So if we go back, these are the different platforms that I recommend for a website. So it depends on if you want to create a standalone website or a website that's going to be used for a newsletter to make money. Most people just want a website. Therefore, they use Wix.com. Wix is a very simple way to create a website with no coding. So here we can log in. Okay, so once you log in, you'll land on this dashboard. And then when you click on Design Sites, you can choose a template. So we decided to go with this specific template, if we can wait for it to load. There we go. So this specific template, and as you can see, it's really simple. You can edit anything you want. And you can also add different elements. So these are all the elements. And then add a button. Buttons are really effective, especially if you want to lead your viewer to another page. So you could just link it to another page, and it's really easy to use. And all you have to do is click publish. And back here, you can also use your specific domain. So it's really easy. And then after, I also recommend beehive.com. So if you want a newsletter, then Beehive is the best. These are the different prices. You can start for free, and then it goes up. So it depends on how much subscribers you have. For example, if you have 75,000 subscribers, then the price will be significantly higher than if you just had 1,000. Yeah. And then there are other platforms too, so such as Squarespace and WordPress. However, they are not as good now that new platforms have come out. So this is Squarespace. They're not as effective, but it's also template based. And for the pricing, it's a bit more expensive, so you can't really start for free. And for WordPress, also, this is the layout. And for the pricing of WordPress, this is the comparison.
What about a newsletter? By the way, perhaps you could start by explaining why it's useful to build a newsletter as opposed to just using social media.
Being present on social media is valuable to find new customers, but it really is dependent on the algorithm. However, for a newsletter, every time someone subscribes, they put their email, and you have full control over who the newsletter goes to and where and how many people you send out your work to.
So how do I build a newsletter? What are the best no-code platforms?
So the simplest and cheapest is Substack. So this is Substack, and all you have to do is sign in, and then you can directly start creating. So an example is if we click on the most recent, it looks like this, and then here you can subscribe, you can play the audio, and it really is the cheapest and most effective platform. And then you can also use Beehive. So it is more expensive, but there are more functions, especially if you want to make a newsletter and make more money. And then finally, there's Medium. So it used to be the best, but now they're making it difficult to read your posts if you don't pay. So I don't really recommend. But this is Medium, and then if you start reading, you have to sign in. But you can already start writing, and it's not as affordable.
Okay. So what are the best socials to use to promote your business?
So it depends on the audience. Instagram, I would say, is from 12 to 30 years old. And then for Linktree, so Instagram doesn't allow links in captions. So you can put the link of your Linktree in your bio, and then it gives you access to all of your links, your websites, and your social medias. So if we look at Linktree, you can sign up for free. You can try 7 days free at first. And then if we look at the pricing comparisons, you start for free, and then gradually it gets a little bit more expensive, but it's not completely unaffordable. So it's pretty good, I would say, if you want to organize all your links in one place. And then you can use TikTok. That's mostly for a teenage audience. And then LinkedIn is for professionals. And then Twitter, or X now, is for tech people. And then finally, Discord. Discord is more a place where you can discuss with your followers about your website. And it's more if you have a community-based website. So if you look at Discord, this is what it looks like. It's basically just a professional group chat where it's you can invite on link or.
On your slide at the start, there was a last box called app. Could you explain how it's different from the website and how you built it?
Yeah, so the website is more a landing page to know what your company is about. And the app is, so different websites have different subdomains. A subdomain is the part that appears before the domain in the URL. Let's look at Wix. Wix, we can look at the first subdomain if I log out. Here it is just www.wix.com. So the subdomain is www. Then once we log in, we can see that it becomes manage.wix.com. And then finally, if you go onto design, it becomes editor.wix.com. And so each is a distinct app, basically. And for a mobile app, let's look at Signal. We can see that here you cannot do anything. You cannot sign in. It's mainly just a place to get to know the website and see if you want to download the app, or here in this case, also donate.
Okay. And if we bring it all together, how much does it cost to get started?
Yeah, so if we recap everything we talked about, we can see for the domain, it's from $10 to many thousands of dollars. For a visual identity, it can go from free to $100. For a website, it can go from $20 a month and above. And for the newsletter, $5 a month plus commission on subscriptions. Socials, most of them are free. And then for the app, it depends on what the app is for, but most of the time it is pretty affordable.
And how long does it take overall?
If you have a vision and understand how to use these tools, from creating a brand, buying a domain, coming up with your logo and theme, launching a website using a no-code platform, and signing up your first subscribers, you can get it done in under 2 hours, to be honest.
And what is the most challenging part of the process?
The most challenging part for me was the idea generation and coming up with a logo, because it means starting from scratch and entirely on your own with no guidance, because you cannot ask someone, what should my business be called? Design a logo, you know?
And do you have one final piece of advice?
Yeah, it's essential to not get stuck on anything at any point in the process. You need to do something good enough and move forward so that you can refine and grow your idea. Your colors and logos will have 20 different visions, so don't wait until you have everything perfect before moving on to the next step.
Thanks for watching. I hope we helped you get started and understand the first steps to launching your business. You can find all the links and accompany this video. Sign up to sparkbuddies.ai to access all that information for free.